I would probably take an average 1-2 grinder playing his A game over an average 25-50 grinder playing his C game any day.
You're listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. Each week, you'll get to peek inside the greatest minds in the game and discover what makes them successful.
Mental toughness separates those that can't handle the stress.
If you're going to treat it like an amateur, you're probably going to have amateur results.
Now here's your host, Elliot Rowe.
Hey, Elliot Rowe here. I'm very excited to announce that for the next few episodes, Stephen Baker will be guest hosting the show. Stephen has experience both as a professional poker player, strategic coach, and now a member of my mindset performance coaching world. I can confidently say that Stephen's one of the world's leading experts in poker mindset and performance, and I'm really excited to hear the conversations he has with some fantastic guests. And with that, here's Stephen.
My guest on today's podcast is Mateos Norian, or Two Card Tito to his online followers. Mateos climbed rapidly from basement games with his friends, micro stakes during the COVID lockdown, to high stakes today. His rise in building a huge social media presence has been equally meteoric. Today, we talk about the highs and lows, the challenges of both these aspects of his career. So without further ado, let's meet Mateos. Hey, Mateos, good to see you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this. I know a bit about you, and I think quite a lot of people who will be listening to this and watching this know a bit about you. But for those who aren't familiar with you, can you just give us a little bit of background? Tell us about your origin story, particularly as it relates to poker, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I'm 24 years old. Been playing poker for a living for just over a year now. I started in May of 2024 playing for a living. I quit my job to pursue just basically playing live poker. But the story actually started during COVID. I got introduced to poker because we all got sent home from college for lockdown, basically. And my friends and I literally had nothing to do. Like we played like a ton of Minecraft. We would just jump on Zoom calls, like just drink, play Minecraft. And like eventually when we started being able to like kind of come back together more in person, we started playing poker. And it was not like the poker was the focus. It was more just like a side activity to hanging out. And we were buying in for maybe $5 to $10 at a time. I don't even remember what our blind structure was. I think the structure we were playing was that we would all just ante 20 cents and there were no blinds. We all just basically anteed because we didn't understand like the concept of blinds. And I just kept finding a way to lose like $50 a night in this like $5, $10 buy-in game. And I think after a while, I decided that it was just getting too expensive and I was getting extremely frustrated with just constantly losing. So I bought this ebook that I would listen to on the way to play sessions. And I don't actually think it had much of an impact on my game. It was like a poker strategy ebook. And I don't think it actually had that much of an impact, because I was maybe studying for 5 minutes before each session or studying, passively listening to an audiobook on the way there. But I guess that was kind of like the start to the snowball effect, if that makes sense, of me starting to take the game more seriously. I can go on if you want, but that's kind of like the intro to how I got into poker at the start, I guess. It's just like those little COVID home games, essentially, with my buddies.
Okay, so my next question was going to be what clicked from you, because you've come a long way since those games and you're now playing high stakes. But I guess you've given part of the answer. It was like being sick of losing, which really kicked you into gear. Just talk a little bit more though, because obviously, it is quite a transformation from just kicking around in a basement, not really caring, to, okay, yeah, I want to win or not be beaten, to, okay, now I'm going to be seriously competitive. Just tell me and tell everybody else a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I was at an interesting point in my life at that time because after COVID, we all went back to school. And at that time with poker, this was a few months maybe after I got that audiobook, I was still extremely recreational. I think I downloaded like ACR, like an online poker client, and I was playing like $2 buy-in games. And I'd done a little bit more research at that point and had installed something to track my hands called Poker Tracker. I think maybe I bought one more ebook that I was very passively reading. But, still like a million leaks. I don't even think I was winning at the $2 buy-in games, So it was very recreational still. But I had just quit college soccer. So I had a lot more free time on my hands when I went back to school. And also I'd messed up my housing that year, where I wasn't living with friends. So I had 2 random roommates. And basically all I'm trying to explain is I just had a ton of free time on my hands because my friends were all on the soccer team. I wasn't living with them. So I was literally just like, pretty much I felt very alone that year. And I just ended up spending a ton of time in my room just after class, reading poker books, watching poker YouTube videos, and just like 4 tabling or 6 tabling 2NL on my computer. And I think I was kind of just like looking for something that was going to replace my soccer identity that had kind of been lost. I was like, oh, well, I used to be the soccer player. Maybe I can become the poker player, because I've always just as a person looked for something to kind of wrap my identity around. I'm not really sure why, but that's kind of how I've always worked. I have like this obsessive personality with getting good at something, and it almost just becomes my personality in a sense, which I don't really know how healthy it is, but it definitely makes you get good at things pretty quickly when you're literally just spending all of your waking hours thinking about it. So that year was just like a whirlwind of playing online poker in an absurd amount, just always researching it, trying to find new ways to learn about it, trying to find new ways to study. It's pretty funny because you don't really think about how little you knew at the start, but like looking back at some of the things I was doing to study, or just like, I was just so lost. I was just like reading Reddit posts of just complete nonsense strategy advice, and then like trying to work that into my game. You just go down like all these rabbit holes of study paths that just like really aren't productive. But I just do think that's kind of the only way that you end up getting good, is by trying like a million different things to like try and figure it out. There's not really any, I think a lot of people want like this silver bullet for like, oh, how did you do it? Do you know what I mean? But like the reality, there's no like silver bullet or moment something clicks. It's just like the accumulation of all these hours of trying random shit with poker, trying different courses, trying different YouTube videos, trying different coaches. Like all this stuff ends up, culminating into what your final game is. It's always work in progress, but it's not just like a silver bullet for like when it clicked. Do you know what I mean? It was just a very slow burn. So I think by the end of that year, my junior year, I started playing 1-2 live. And I'd had some success there. I think I probably played like 200 hours of 1-2 live that year after class. I had to drive like 45 minutes to the casino, or an hour, which was obviously not ideal when I was balancing it with class and stuff like that. So I didn't play that much live, but I ended up winning like, I don't remember how, I won a few $1,000s playing 1-2, and that went straight to my bankroll. And then that summer I got another internship. I basically worked all throughout college as well, which helped a lot with bankroll. I was working a front desk job. I got paid $15 an hour, and it was like a night shift. So basically I would get there at like 9 and close at like 12:30 usually. It was a gym, and I would just study while I was there because there'd be not really anyone there anyway. So I would study there. And then I was working internships also during the year too. So I had a part-time internship at another software company, and that was paying me like $25 an hour. I was kind of just finding all these side hustles to make more money during college because I wanted to grow my poker bankroll. And I knew that playing micros was not going to, accelerate me to like high stakes. That wasn't going to be the way I was going to make money. So I was looking for all these other ways to make money. And then during the summer, I got a pretty good internship that year that paid me. It was either my sophomore year or my junior year that I got I had a $35 hour internship, the summer before my junior year. So I had a bit of a bankroll coming into my junior year, but I was just being like a massive nit and just only playing 10NL because I was like, I was a huge loser for a while. Like a massive loser. So like, I knew I couldn't move up in stakes because it was just gonna get bad in terms of how much money I was gonna be losing. But then that junior year, I got another internship where I was making $50 an hour, which is just insane when you think about it. But as a product management intern in the Silicon Valley area. So that senior year, I came back with like I invested like half of it. So I think I came back with like around $10,000 to my name senior year. And that's really when like I started to put the pieces together, I guess, with poker a bit more. I'd found better study material online. I started to kind of build my own lens of how I thought poker should be played. I guess what my understanding of the game was just improving, I think, to align more with reality. I think that's like when things start to click, I guess. You know what I mean? Is like when your perception of how things are happening is actually aligned with reality. I think that's like an okay way of describing it. Because I think a lot of times you talk to not like novice, but you talk to earlier poker players and you ask them a question about a hand and their perception of what is going on is so different than yours. And I think that's when you know that there's a very clear skill difference. And when your perception of what's happening, starts to align more with what you're actually seeing in game and your results, I think that's a sign that you're on a good path in general. And I felt like that year I just started taking my study more seriously in the sense where I'd gotten a subscription to GTO Wizard, and every day I would come back, watch videos of play and explains online essentially, and listen to what the person playing was saying. And he's usually like a 500 NL or something like play and explain. And I would run every single spot that they played in GTO Wizard, and I would like look at the solver's response, what the player was doing in game, what they were saying, and I would kind of write notes about what I was thinking, what I expected to happen. And basically just like trained my mind that way, I guess. But it was not like I was trying to play exactly theory. I was just always trying to think about what's going to be happening in theory. What is this person doing? What are they saying their take is? And just basically comparing and contrasting what was happening in reality in the video versus what was happening in the solver. I think that was super helpful. I did that for like 6 months to a year, almost every day for like an hour or two. And then by the end of that senior year, I was playing 500 NL on Ignition and playing 2.5 live. And I graduated with like a $30,000 bankroll. And I felt like I was on a good path at that point, poker wise. But it still kind of felt like a pipe dream, if that makes sense. Like I'd made more money.
Yeah, it does.
But
it's interesting listening to you talk. I mean, when I ask this question, it's a common question I ask on this podcast because pretty well everybody who's on here has managed to climb up the poker tree, and that's a lot easier said than done. I'm always looking for what are the reasons why this person has made it compared to those who haven't. And something that really stood out for me there was the way you approached your GTO Wizard study. I think a lot of people in their study are much more passive than you described, but yours was a very active approach. Mm-hmm. You were watching what somebody was explaining, you were looking at the solutions, but you were thinking actively about what your own thoughts are. And this is something I talk to clients about, active learning, deliberate practice compared to passive ingesting of information. And you kind of described early stages somewhat passively ingesting information, but you obviously evolved to that moment where you were like, let me try and come up with my own solutions. So that may well be a real reason why you've accelerated in a way that maybe others haven't. Does that sound reasonable? Or I suppose you've got nothing to compare it to apart from your own path.
I mean, I think in general, so basically my dad was a software engineer and he kind of instilled the skill within me of like learning things for myself at a young age. But I think a big reason I think anyone is successful is just because of their upbringing, like in like the environment they've been brought up in and the things that they've learned along the way. I don't think anyone is just naturally born. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Elite learner. Like I'm not taking any credit for that. It's more like my dad, when I was younger, would buy me programming books and basically say, okay, you can figure, like, go learn. And he would just give me a book and I would go through all the exercises in the book. And I taught myself like JavaScript and Python when I was in like 6th or 7th grade. And I think that when I was younger, that realization that I was capable of teaching myself things if I sat down and like forced myself to apply things and learn by doing, and learn by actively like listening and thinking myself, not just like trying to regurgitate essentially. I had the realization that I could figure things out on my own. It was super helpful. It was incredibly frustrating working with my dad because anytime I tried to ask him something, his number one question was, have you tried to figure it out yourself yet? And I used to go and ask my mom questions for a while because it would just really annoy me when my dad would say that, because always the answer was, no, I haven't tried to figure it out for myself yet. That's why I'm asking you. But it really did eventually become a habit where the thing I would do was I would go to my computer and look up a question if I wanted to find the answer to it. And I would always find a way to answer it for myself. And it became this thing in college too, where my friends would come and ask me questions. And I could always figure out the answer for them for the most part, because I would just go look it up. Even if I didn't know anything about the topic, I was willing to spend like 5 to 10 minutes just like researching to find the answer out for myself. And I think that skill actually, ironically, just did really help in poker. Was like I was never super daunted by it because I always had this feeling that like, you know, there's other regular people doing this, right? That they're not like best prodigies, every poker player. If they can figure it out, I can figure it out. There's a ton of resources on the internet. So I think it was more just like that belief that I could figure it out, rather than like I was thinking like, oh, this active learning process is really doing it for me. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it was always, if I continue to sit down and think about this stuff critically, and I take like an approach to it where I'm being deliberate, right? Then I think I think I'm going to be successful. And also just being absolutely obsessed with anything is a huge advantage. If you're just obsessed, I didn't care about making it to high stakes. That was never my like goal in the beginning. I was just so obsessed with poker that it just naturally got to this point where I just decided to move up in stakes. But I was okay with doing it for like 30 years and just being like an okay 50NL player, because like I just really liked the process of trying to learn about it. Do you know what I mean? So I do think like the being deliberate with the studying was definitely helpful, but just like the more meta broad skill, I think that's just really benefited me in life has just been the learning how to learn, essentially, and the genuine belief that I can learn anything that I decide to learn. Like I do really believe that like with the internet, you can learn anything you want to if you're willing to sit down and spend enough time. Reading,
absolutely. It. And in a sense, that passion for what you were doing probably made that active learning just more natural. You know, we're going to be lazy with learning something if we're just not inherently intrinsically motivated by it. But if you are, then you're going to want to look under the hood and see what's going on. In that sense, you remind me very much of an earlier. It's interesting listening to you talk about the resources available, because like the challenges are very different for somebody who's come up learning poker when you have, because there's so much information. Mm-hmm. It's almost like one of the challenges is, well, where do I look? Because there's so much. Whereas back in the day when I learned poker, it was kind of card runners. I don't even know whether that name means anything to you, but that was like probably the first.
I've heard of it when the boomers at the table are talking about
exactly. Yeah, that's like card runners, and then Juicy's Crack came along. You know, Vanessa Selps did amazing videos on Juicy's Crack. And like, so in a sense, it was easy, but it was really interesting because I had a guest on the podcast a while back, another client of mine, Henrik Johansson, who was like one of the best back in the day heads up players. And his approach was very like yours. He went away with pen and paper and started trying to work out how this thing was working, where the leaks were, what he thought about it. And he came back with some pretty good answers as it happened, a bit like you have. So it's really interesting. The contexts are very different because he was very much from that era as well. Mm-hmm. The era of full tilt and card runners. But really, the approach was very similar. It was like, I want to look under the hood and see how this thing's working, and I want to play around with it and find some solutions for myself. So like, I think, for me, sharing things with the audience here, I think that very active, deliberate learning process is going to make a massive difference to anyone listening. But the reality of what you just said, which is it came from a passion. There's no substitute for passion. It's going to be easier to do these things if you just have that intrinsic desire to really want to do this.
Yeah. Naval Ravikant, I think I'm saying his name right, has like it's a kind of Twitter philosopher, startup guy. And he basically talks about like the edge that you get from being just way more obsessed with something than someone else. Because it just becomes 10 times easier for you to want to spend time doing something. So naturally, you're just going to end up spending basically 10x the amount of time on something than someone else does. And for you, it'll feel like play, and for them, it'll feel like work. And that just over years will just compound to a ridiculous level in terms of how much further ahead of other people you'll get when you'll have passion for it. So I think honestly, a big thing for me is like just trying to find things that I really like if I'm going to spend a lot of time on it, because if I don't like it, there's just no way I'm going to ever get elite at it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm like elite at poker, but I would have never gotten to this level of poker if I didn't absolutely love it. Like there's just no way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to now take the conversation to another aspect of your professional life, because while it's true, there's always been, even for those of us who go back in the day, pre-social media, while there have always been professional poker players who've built and leveraged a personal brand, this has been a much more widely accessible route with the advent of social media, and you've built a big following. I just want you to maybe talk about the advantages, but also the challenges of going down that route compared to just being a pure grinder.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for context, I started an Instagram earlier this year, or maybe it was end of last year, I think, around like December or November. And basically, I was at a point in my life where I'd quit my job pretty recently. I'd gone on like a 40 or 50 or I think actually it got to 70K at one point, but I think the point where I started, it might have been at like 50 or 60K downswing after quitting my job. And I had to move back home because the lease on my apartment ended in the Bay Area. And I said, well, I just lost $40,000 this week, so I don't think I should renew my lease. Like, that doesn't seem very financially intelligent. So I moved back home to live with my parents. I was just spending so much time laying in my room, just watching Instagram videos, just YouTube, just zero motivation to go and play, except like I just lost so much money. I don't want to go play live poker right now. And I think part of me realized like I love poker, but I don't want this to be the only thing I'm ever good at. There's just so many more interesting things to learn about than just a card game. And poker is super interesting, but I think it kind of scared me to like have all my eggs in one basket and just be this one-dimensional human to a certain extent, because like then when poker is going bad, it feels like your life is going bad, right? If that's the only thing you're good at or the only thing you feel like you have going on, when that starts to go to shit, well, it's like you can have the best mental game in the world, but like if that is your life, then your life is kind of objectively shit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can surround yourself with family and do all these other things, right? Be like a good family member, a good boyfriend or whatever, if you're in a relationship, and that can definitely help. But for me, I felt like alone at that time because, to be honest with you, I wasn't being a great family member because I was just incredibly self-obsessed with my own journey and like really stressed out about everything going on. And kind of just like worried I was fucking up my whole life. So I was like, okay, I have heard that, building a social media brand can be helpful for your poker career. There's no one creating poker content that I currently enjoy really watching. Like, there's no one that's actually documenting what it's like to try and do this for a living when you're just absolutely down in the dumps. You've just lost thousands of dollars. Like, no one's just documented their come up journey in like a way that I thought was authentic and transparent. So I bought a course on content creation, just watched infinite videos. I was like staying up till like 4 or 5 in the morning, just watching these videos, taking notes, and then like basically practicing making videos on my iPhone using CapCut. And the crux of what I was learning was like storytelling. Basically, it was just like storytelling through short form social media was like the skill that I was trying to get good at. And I was just spending a lot of time doing that. And my videos were actually awful in the beginning. Like they weren't even storytelling in the beginning. I was basically just like posting like poker memes. I knew that wasn't the final form of what I wanted at the time, but I also knew that I needed to just start posting because that was the scariest part for me was like hitting the post button and then all my friends being able to see it. And people being like, "Oh, look at Mateos. He's doing this like little social media like thing, like living with his parents, playing gambling for a living, and starting an Instagram with like 50 followers." Like from outside in, I looked completely lost. If you know what I mean. I think people were a bit like, "Man, what is this guy doing?" But yeah, that was kind of the start of how I started doing the content journey, I guess.
Yeah, interesting as well that pattern you described in terms of learning poker and that phase where you were just obsessed, you felt the passion for it, you then really dug under the bonnet to see how it all worked and become better. It seems to have been reproduced as well with the way you described really sinking your teeth into that content creation course. Were you feeling that same passion to become that content creator? Was that the driver again, that underlying passion?
I think there's like different levels of it. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's not like every time I start trying to learn something, I'm like, could I do this for the next 45 years? Because I think that's super hard to know in the beginning. But I definitely get this sense of like, this is something I'm interested in learning. Do you know what I mean? And I can really sink my teeth into it right now. And I definitely felt that burst with content for a while. Like I was very happy to just like sit there and binge YouTube videos and like take notes and just basically try and learn as much as possible. So yeah, I guess it was a similar feeling to poker in the beginning where it was like, yeah, I just really, really enjoy learning this. And I think like the funny thing is like, I think people do like learning, but like school has like traditional school has put them so much off of that word learning, where it's like almost people just like get this like disgusted like homework reaction to it. Do you know what I mean? But to me, it's like if you can rewire your brain to think of it almost as you're doing something you want to do, it's a skill you want to get good at. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like learning sports. Do you know what I mean? If you're watching sports, like, I mean, you're trying to get better at your sport by watching. You are doing learning, but people don't think about it like that. Do you know what I mean? They think about it as like, oh, this is this fun activity. But when you're learning about something you want to be doing, that is a fun activity. So I guess it never really felt like I was like sitting down and like putting my nose to the grindstone or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because I was just doing something that I wanted to do and I was genuinely interested in learning about.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And just circling back to something you said about that moment where you're putting yourself out there and, you know, the eyes are on you. You've put yourself in a position where the eyes are on you. And one thing that anybody who hasn't seen your social media will discover is you're open and honest about the tough times in poker, the downswings. How did you find being on social media, and how do you find it when it happens, those tough days, maybe even tough periods where things aren't going your way, but you're being very open, very honest? How do you find that? Are there any difficulties dealing with that from your perspective?
So, you know, like I would say I'm naturally like a pretty insecure person, but the thing is, with social media, it doesn't actually like feel real to a certain extent. Do you know what I mean? So I think if I heard the comments that people said in person to my face, I would be like, whoa, I don't know if I can do this for 5 years. Like, but since it's all through a screen, do you know what I mean? And like, I think I have like 75,000 followers now. That number just doesn't feel real. Do you know what I mean? Like if there was 75,000 people sitting in front of me, like while I was speaking to you right now, like I would like shit myself. I'd be frozen. I wouldn't be able to speak. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But since it's like this digital medium where you just click post and you don't see anyone watching your videos, you don't really feel it. So it's the scariest part was at the beginning, man. Like when I was thinking about what the people I knew that were close to me were going to say. Because it's cringe until it's not cringe. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's cringe until you've made it something. So the first 25 posts, like, oh my God, I felt so cringe doing it, because it's like, you haven't proved that you can do this yet. And you're kind of just putting yourself out there as an experiment. And the people around you are currently the only ones following you. Do you know what I mean? Like your high school buddies, your college buddies are the only ones that are currently following the account, because you haven't had any traction yet. And man, that's the point where it is a bit, I had a lot of, I guess, personal development in the sense where I had to come up with these methods for just coping with the fact that I was so uncomfortable in my own skin at the time, and so uncomfortable with like this new posting thing that I was doing. And like, it just, I don't really know how to describe it, but I had basically come to this conclusion that I really wanted to start doing this, just putting myself out there, because I genuinely thought I had something to offer. I think for anyone starting a personal brand, like, the reason people follow you is because you have something that they want. That's like kind of the general thesis for why someone would follow you, right? And something they want can be very broad, right? You can have a sense of humor that they want. You can be on a journey that they want to understand, which is kind of what I felt like I had to offer. I had a journey that I think people wanted to understand, or that people were going to find interesting. So I genuinely felt like I had something to share with like the world, right? That people were going to want to watch. So I basically was like driving one day, and I was listening to this Alex Hormozy podcast. And this was before I had started the posting, but I was just down horrendous, living with my parents still, just like basically depressed, to be honest with you. And he was talking about how, like, basically, and this is like a topic that so many people have talked about, and it's not like I'm trying to act like I'm a philosopher right now, but just like talking about like how short life is, and like the brevity of life, and how we're all going to die and no one is going to remember us. And I think like you hear that sometimes, and depending on the mood you're in, you're like, yeah, fuck off, like whatever. I've heard that a million times. And then if you're in the mood where you're feeling very existential, you hear that and you're like, oh my God, I really just need to do the thing. So I'm obviously in that second mode, right? Where I'm feeling existential, I'm depressed. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I'm just like at home, kind of like I've fallen off poker. I'm trying to get maybe into this, dabbling with the social media idea. And he's talking about how like there are people, right, who ruled kingdoms in countries like hundreds of years ago. And at the time, they were the most popular people, right, in the world. Like people throughout the kingdom knew them. And now no one has any idea who they are. Like you could not tell me who the king of India was in like whatever 1,000 years ago, but at the time he would have been the most famous person in the world, right? So I think like to a certain extent, I realized like just how in my own head I was about how important I was going to be, and how important the things I was going to be doing were going to be, when in reality, who fucking cares? Do you know what I mean? Like even now with 75,000 followers, it's like so funny because I realize how little that number matters. Like I literally, I come back here and I just lay in this bed like half the day. And like, I think when I started this journey, I thought like when I hit 75,000 followers, my life was going to be this.
Yeah.
Then you realize no one cares. Like your life is still the exact same, and that it's fun because the thing that you're working on is yourself. Like that is in the end, when you get to your goal, the thing that's going to be changed is you. It's not the people around you. That's not the stuff that's really changed. Like everyone is really worried about themselves. Do you know what I mean? That's what you realize. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's not this crazy transformation that happens around you. So it's really just convincing yourself that it's that you would rather like I think the final thing for me was just that I would rather like not, I would rather die knowing that I tried it, right? Like this, the fear of like dying without trying it way outweighed the fear of trying it and then like getting ridiculed. Basically I was like, which one am I more scared of, getting ridiculed, or like in 100 years, I look back on my life and be like, you took zero risks, you pussy, because you were scared about what everyone is going to say about you. And then you just die and like, you just never did anything like that you wanted to do because you're just petrified of this fear that you've never actually explored. So yeah. I was kind of like, I was just like, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to start posting.
And that mindset, is that something, I mean, I've watched some of your hands. That mindset is something you bring to the table as well. You're never going to die wondering.
Yeah, I don't like to die wondering what my opponent might have had, so I do.
that can go too far. But yeah, I mean, that mindset is a strength, one which sees opportunity rather than all the downsides, which is kind of the opposite way to which we're inherently wired as humans. We tend to be more risk averse, but that's a real mindset issue. I mean, perhaps that's a good segue into the question I want to put next to you is what are your biggest challenges now, and what steps have you taken to address them? Particularly, I noticed that at an early stage in your career, you've taken mindset work, performance work seriously. Just want you to talk a little bit about that and talk about, as I say, what are the challenges, what are the tools you're using?
So, sorry, you mean challenges in terms of like what in what area of life?
Well, I guess whatever area of life, but I suppose particularly as they manifest themselves in your career path. It may be at the tables, but it may be the stuff away from the tables, particularly given the other dimension to your career, which we've just discussed, the social media element.
Yeah. Man, I mean, I feel like I'm constantly, fighting some new battle. I didn't quite expect at the beginning, where I thought I was just gonna be able to show up to the tables and print for the rest of my life and be a happy man. That's not quite what's happened. I think, I mean, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but there is a bit of this. I don't really know what type of person deals with this, but I certainly have to think about it just way more than I wish I did. But it's this constant question of kind of what's the point? Where it's like, okay, I've made it to being able to play 10, 20, 20, 40 when it runs, right? Just completely on my own bankroll. And that when I started playing poker, I'd convinced myself that that was the end state. I mean, I'd be happy once I'd achieved that. I hit 75,000 followers when at the beginning of the year, I think I set some ridiculous goal of wanting to hit 50K, but that was like 5X what I actually wanted to hit, which was 10K. But I was like, I'm just going to set a goal way bigger than that. So if I even get like a quarter of that, I'll be happy. But I hit 75,000 and I'm just like, well, I convinced myself that I'd be happy when I did that. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm at this phase where I'm just like, man, what the hell? I just told myself I'm going to be happy all these times over and over again. And I just keep getting to these things and I just feel the same. And it's just not, and I don't have like this next really big goal of what I want to do. Because I think a part of me is realized it's just so empty every single time, like that these goals are like very empty, to a certain extent. And like, I guess the real goal was just building a life that you enjoy and that's fulfilling to pursue, I guess, because like the real work, I guess, is being done on you when you're doing the work. Do you know what I mean? It's like building your character, building your sense of self. That is like the real work that's occurring. But I really struggle to grasp that, I guess, it is what I would say. And I'm not really sure what it is, but I feel like unless I achieve something like big almost every day, that like my day feels empty. I think a part of that is because maybe US work culture or just my own personal culture that I've developed is so work success oriented, if that makes sense, that it's like you start associating your entire life with being a productive worker in society. And when you start working for yourself, I mean, I'm basically my own boss at the end of the day when it comes to poker and content. Man, that is so hard because there's no one telling you to wake up and go do it. And then when you start having these feelings that life is like these goals that you're setting are empty and meaningless. Well, that's basically like, imagine your boss had an existential crisis and started not giving you any work to do because he started thinking, man, what's the point of me giving all of my employees work to do? It's all meaningless at the end of the day. Well, I am my own boss, and that is how like my current thinking is really around things. So it's been very hard to motivate myself to go to work, which really just means me making reels, talking about poker, me going and playing poker. Like it's just been more of a struggle than I've anticipated. And I'm like okay with it to a certain extent because I've made enough money this year where I can take as much time off as I want to, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished in terms of like I fucking was in my bed in my parents' house, playing 2.5 at the beginning of this year, and then I ended up playing on Hustler, and I played like 100K pot practically this year. It's just like insane, like in terms of professional development, what's occurred, and I feel super grateful for it. But I want to get back on the horse again, get back in that mode where I'm excited to be working on something. But right now I'm kind of in this slump of like, what the fuck is the point, man? Like I'm just
it's interesting. I get the impression you sort of. I think the answer to the problem you've just posed was kind of what you said earlier, which was, it was never your intention. It wasn't like a destination of I want to be a high stakes player. It was just the process of enjoying playing poker, learning about poker, being better at it, and maybe that's the point of the whole thing. And in fact, it's far more sustaining than having a single destination, because a single destination, you get there, what then?
Yeah.
And this is something which a lot of people suffer from. They win the bracelet or they win the Olympic gold medal. And then it's like, well, what now? Haven't I just achieved my purpose? But I guess, your answer of, I just love doing this. Now, I suppose the other side to what you said, though, of that passion and also that culture of got to keep working, got to keep pushing, probably drives you to burnout. And that's when you have the low moments. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, man, the funny thing is like burnout for me. It's like, I mean, you and I have talked about this a bit privately, right? But I get this extreme sense of guilt anytime I talk about burnout, because I'm like, dude, look at your life. Like, you grew up with an affluent family. They paid for your college. You got to quit your job, play poker. When it was going bad, you got to move back in with your family. They supported you. You know what I mean? They taught you how to learn so you could teach yourself things. You're able to teach yourself things and then sustain your own income. And here you are making Instagram videos about your life, and you're talking about like, like your life being hard. And like people comment that occasionally, and I'm like, you know what, man, you're right, but this is just how I feel. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not telling you my life is tough objectively. Like I'm not trying to say my life is objectively tough. It is not. It's objectively amazing. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel like in the moment that like I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Do you know what I mean? Like, why am I not like happy? Which is kind of what drives me a bit insane. Do you know what I mean? This like feeling of why don't I enjoy all these things around me that I have? Why am I not as excited anymore to go into the casino to play poker? Why am I not as excited to make content these days? I don't really know what the answer is. I think maybe it has something to do with what you're talking about, where it's like became very goal oriented and I stopped enjoying the process of learning things. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of the point that I'm at in my life, where it's like enjoying the journey between the goalposts. You know what I mean? But right now I'm kind of don't have these goalposts that I'm moving towards. So I'm kind of just drifting,
Absolutely. Yes. So more work to do there, but that's the way of life. Let me just ask you to reflect on everything you've learned along the way. And really, if you were to give advice to someone who is where you were at the beginning of your journey, playing micro stakes, but starting to feel that real love for the game, that you want to get better, what would you advise them? And maybe it's might even be the same advice, but what's the one thing you wish someone had told you at the start of your journey?
Oh, man. Well, I'd say that there are much more fulfilling things you can pursue than poker. I do think poker is a great game, but I really do think one of the great things about being a human is social interaction and working with other people and being interdependent towards, shared goals. Whereas poker, a lot of the incentives are aligned, so you're just working for yourself and it's like zero sum. So it does miss a lot of that camaraderie. So I'd say like if you're gonna get into this game, find like-minded people for sure. So at least you feel like you have some of that camaraderie, and also that's the stuff you're gonna remember more than like your personal wins. To be honest with you, it's like the relationships and stuff you develop with other players that like are more meaningful. So try and find like-minded people. And I mean, the other thing that I always get so worried about with me posting is the fact that don't compare your journey to others. I had a real problem with this early on, and I think I still have this problem to a certain extent. I think it's fairly common, but it's just comparing yourself to others and you're comparing your own timeline to the timelines of others. I used to be obsessed with trying to figure out how old people were. And this is like the most egotistical, insane fucking thing ever. But like, I'd be like, oh, how old are they? So I can compare my journey and my growth to how fast they grew. Do you know what I mean? When in reality, man, like the only reason I'm able to play mid to high stakes is because of my background and my growing up. Like I graduated college with like zero debt, and my parents, like my dad, like taught me how to program and helped me prepare for interviews in college with product management roles because he had experience with that. So I could get those jobs that were high paying out of school. Do you know what I mean? And then like it led to me being able to have more money at a younger age and be able to shot take and do all these things. You know what I mean? So like, comparing your journey to mine would be absolutely ridiculous, and comparing your journey to someone else's would be absolutely ridiculous because you have no idea what factors went into it. So like you will drive yourself absolutely up a wall if you're constantly comparing yourself to others. So I would say, you know, it's natural to do it, but then just remind yourself that you have no idea what advantages they've had or disadvantages they've had, you know, whether you're ahead or behind them. It's just all arbitrary, to be honest. And then this one's a bit grim, but like poker will get so much worse than you ever expected in terms of like everyone says this, but you will run worse and feel worse than you ever thought was humanly possible if you try and play this game for a living. So there's no way to prepare yourself for that, but just know it's completely natural to be at a point where you're like, well, I never thought it could get this bad. Like I was on my Vegas Airbnb. I remember when I was like, I was like looking at my graph and I was like, wow, if you told me at that peak that this is where we'd be right now, I don't think I would have believed you at the time. And I think I'm just saying all this stuff because like the thing about pursuing poker is like, if you were going to stick with the game, you have to love it so much. And I think that's everything. But like, if you were going to try and make it your life, you have to know that's not all sunshine and rainbows and stuff like that. Like it's a constant battle. That's like pursuing anything that's tough to do, or like not many people are doing it. Like it's just going to be hard, man. And like at the end of the day, the way you get through that is by one, loving it, and two, just like grit. And this is like, it just gets so much worse than you'd expect. So I don't know. I guess those would be my couple words of advice, but it ain't pretty out there, I guess. Like there's a lot of other more rewarding things you can do. So maybe don't pursue poker would be my ultimate advice.
Yeah, I mean, but you're absolutely right. And in fact, I actually do. I can't remember whether you've come across this session, but I do a session with clients. So occasionally a client will come to me and say, I don't want to feel emotions. And it's like, well, good luck with that. You're a human, and emotions are part of our intelligence, in fact. And basically, yeah, having those negative emotions are part of the price ticket of doing anything worthwhile. Anything worthwhile, you're going to have setbacks. And poker really is the perfect sandbox for that, right? You get them on a pretty well sort of, weekly basis. You're lucky if you don't, almost. So yeah, absolutely. Everything you say. And guess what? Yeah, you get 75,000 followers. There's going to be some haters and there's going to be some difficult moments there. But yeah. I mean, you've got to be prepared. You've got to be prepared to buckle up for that, whatever your chosen career.
Yeah, I mean the emotion thing, man. Like it's so ridiculous to think that poker is just work. Do you know what I mean? And like any work, you're going to show back up with emotions. Like if you had a frustrating day at the office, right, where a coworker said something nasty to you, or a project didn't pan out the way you wanted to, you'd be emotionally frustrated when you got home. unless you're some robot. Do you know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I don't know why people think poker is any different, right? You have a tough day at the office. Like sometimes it comes home with you and it's just coming up with strategies to deal with that and not like fucking throw a chair through a window or do something insane. Do you know what I mean? But like I've also thrown a chair before when I've been playing, like I'm behind. Do you know what I mean? Like I've let it get the best of me before, but it's like, it's more like, I think doing the visualization work that you and I do, like doing things that align with the future vision for myself, like every day is the way that I've started coping with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, do things that are going to set you up to win tomorrow. That's how you do your preparation. Like a lot of times people ask me, do you have like a pre-poker routine? And honestly, like I have a morning routine, but it's not like preparing me for poker. Do you know what I mean? Like really your pregame routine is all the stuff you've been doing for the last few years. Also you've been doing for the last few months. Do you know what I mean? That's your ultimate pregame routine. It's like, how did you show up last week when you fucking went out drinking the night before? Did you just lay in bed and watch Instagram all day? Or did you decide to go like work out and like stay true to your, like basically your character? Do you know what I mean? Like the things that that make you proud of yourself. Did you decide to do that stuff, or did you just kind of slip to this other version of yourself? I feel like that's the pregame routine. When I show up at the tables and play the best, so I feel like my actions the week before have been most aligned with like my ideal character and my vision for my future. That's when I'm playing my best, because I feel like I'm on the path that I want to be on. When I show up and I'm trying to get, I didn't sleep well. I maybe didn't do the things I wanted to do the day before in terms of like the work I want to do for my future. Then I'm showing up in this state where I know I'm off the path, and maybe I'm going to try and compensate for it in some way that's unexpected. Do you know what I mean? Having a big session so that I feel more on track. Do you know what I mean? When you start compensating for things that the only way you could compensate them for is by having prepared a week ago, you're fucked. Like you just have to realize you just need to get yourself on track slowly, and that's a long game. I guess the preparation work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mateos, thank you so much. Just before you go, where can people find you on social media and follow your journey?
So Instagram is where I'm most active. That's at 2cardtito with the number 2. And same handle on YouTube. But I'm less active on YouTube. I post more like long form vlogs, maybe once every month or so on YouTube. But Instagram, I post basically every few days and almost daily on my story. So if you want to keep up with me, you can follow me there.
That's great. And we'll put that in the show notes for everybody. Mateos, thank you again for being so generous with your time and thoughts. And for more of this, everybody do follow Mateos. It's really worth watching. I know I may be biased, but I truly believe it is. And he shares plenty of very honest thoughts about his journey. So go ahead. Well, thank you again, Mateos.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. That was fun.
So many thanks to Mateos for his time and also his openness. And that's very much part of Mateos. I'd highly recommend following him if you don't already on social media, because you really get the truth with Mateos when he talks to you through social media. You really get to see what it's like to be a personality within poker, playing high stakes and facing all of the challenges. And also thank you for watching and listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. I look forward to seeing you next time.
You've been listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. To get future episodes delivered to you automatically, make sure to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting service. To get any resources mentioned in the episode or to listen to past shows, visit pokermindcoach.com/TMA podcast. Thanks for listening.